Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Maximo Top Tips for Administrators. Thank you for tuning in from wherever you are around the world. My name is Chris Winston. I will be your host from here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Maximo 7.6.1.1 and the Tivoli 09 skin will be utilized for screenshots and for the demonstration environment. This session is being recorded, and a link will go out to those registered in probably under 2 weeks. Please remember, this session is just a primer and is not a replacement for formal training with an environment to test what you have learned. Additionally, there are handouts that are available to you now for download. You should be able to see the handout indicator if for some reason the section is compressed. Click on the small triangle, that should open it up. You can click on the individual handouts and download them directly. There will be two. One will be a copy of the slides that you're seeing now, and then there's a second document that will contain a number of links for references that will assist you beyond this presentation. The links will be clickable, or you can copy and paste them as opposed to trying to type what you see on the screen. Just makes it easier. Don't know why I didn't think about that before. Most will not require a registration or a login. You just click the link and you get to what you have. Not all, but most. All right. So this is a little bit of information about Project Tech. You can review the details when convenient in the recording. The main point here is our experience with Maximo and Maximo as a service is the primary source for this content. The Maximo Online Resources and Education community was something we've rolled out recently. You may find a number of resources available to you there, including a list of events as we get them that are Maximo related. Registration is free, and in fact, the online events doesn't require registration. You just go to the page and go to the bottom. And just for reference, the slide today there'll be some demonstration as well at the end to cover a few of the key points. For those of you registered early, thank you very much for your questions. Tried to incorporate some of those related to administration and added a couple of additional links that will be useful to address those questions as well. So during this session, I'll be able to review several topics at a high level, but next week, Stephen Shull, our IBM champion, will take a deeper dive into automation scripts specifically. So remember to register, and yes, in the list of links, there's a link for that as well. Or you can go to project.com/webinars and you'll see the links there. You can see them in more Maximo community as well. And again, just when you get to more Maximo.com, just scroll to the bottom, you see the events. You can look at the entire events list, and again, as we get them, we'll publish them there. Alrighty. And let's get into the meat. So here's our agenda. We'll cover several administrative applications which provide ways to alter Maximo, configuration, customization, tailoring, of course, the famous buzzwords, and mainly to help you scale Maximo up or down. Alrighty, so let's get started with, looks like financials. Okay, chart of accounts. So Maximo has the capability to capture your costs for labor, materials, tools, and services, and the significant tables for these transactions carry the GL debit credit accounts as well as the financial period fields, and these are populated if used. So if you want to know where your dollars are going in terms of your general ledger, you'll want to make sure your chart of accounts is in place and in use so that those records will be marked with the correct values, and analysis will provide you with greater detail around where those dollars are going. If you are far enough along with Maximo, then you can also leverage the budget monitoring feature within the application. Now, if you're on an older version, but you have your chart of accounts in place and your transactions are being captured with the chart of accounts, with the financial periods as well, then when you do get to the right version, the budget monitoring can be set up for time in the past to see how you've done, and then of course from that point forward. But you have to get your chart of accounts set up and into Maximo and in use before that capability will be present. All right, conditional expression and usage. And of course, here's one of those links that I mentioned before. It does work. You click on it, it'll open a page somewhere. Of course, it opens the page off screen, but it will take you to a place. And again, I've tested the links. The main thing I wanted to do was I've presented some of these links previously. They went to the wiki, the IBM Maximo wiki, which is no longer in place. So what I've done is you may have gotten some of these before. I've replaced them with the actual link, bypassing the wiki to go to the direct page that they are on, and you will see them there. All right. So, conditional expressions, I touched on them in a previous video, and there's a lot of things you can do with them. If you want, you can Google the Simplifying Maximo video if you want to take a peek, and in fact, there's a link to it as well. And that one was using signature options. I'll cover global data restrictions today, but the thing that makes this happen is the Conditional Expression Manager application. Conditional user interface or conditional UI will alter what is shown, required, hidden, etc., based on conditions for all users in terms of global data restrictions. Conditions can also be set based on security option, of which many are already set in the application when it's initially installed, just to give you features depending on organization settings or even security settings that you use. Global data restrictions for specific objects or attributes can be configured for all groups or specific groups. And I say groups, I mean security groups. And in this demo, we'll apply a global restriction to require fields based on a condition for all users, just kind of as an example. Different from the previous example. All right, so let's take a look at next. Yes, application designer changes. So in the previous video on searching and querying Maximo, and yep, there's a link available, showed how the application designer changes are used. Today, I'll look at a couple other things. Here are several suggested changes for mostly administrative applications. I'm going to dig into a couple on how they are done and show you that. And depending on how your implementation is running, some of these may be applicable. In short, if you're having issues and end up in these applications frequently, there are a number of changes that are likely to help. Yes, report administration. For a given number of controls, including actions to examine the current set of scheduled reports, what's in the report queue, and even more in the list tabs. For any given report, here's where you can set your record limits so that the report, when you get a lot of historical records, you may want to set limits so that the report does not really run out of control. Your controls on how you add the reports onto the toolbar are available, and they can be set here as well. And on the off chance you run into a report where you go to run it, you want to run it immediately, and immediately it's not available, most likely the schedule only checkbox has been checked, and you just need to clear that to allow the report to be run immediately. And this is just a perfect example. Cost of a system report, just, and it's not the only one, but it just comes delivered with the box checked, and you just want to go ahead and clear it, return it to the request page, and move along. Runtime parameters for reports that are built, they are set up here. Query-based reporting, if you want to build a query-based report and then set your runtime parameters here, you can do that. Just keep in mind, average users, even super users, probably will not have access to report administration, so you'll need to coordinate getting the parameters set up with the developers who will build the individual query-based report. All right, what else we have? Oh, yes. System properties provides a number of global configuration options in Maximo. These affect all users, okay? All users. So change wisely and remember to test. Many of them alter what you don't see, like where the help is hosted. It's basically just a URL. Identification of ports, protocols, etc. So things that happen in the background and where you actually identify how those things happen, where they go. So not necessarily things that you're going to see on the screen, but they are needed to make things work or alter how things work. But there are also some that cover what you see in Maximo. And many were covered in a previous video, but I will hit on a few additional ones today with a sample of how they work during a demonstration. As an example, if you want to show more queries on the list, you need to move something else or you run out of room. So, since the toolbar by default comes with a lot of room, I'll show you where we've moved a few icons to the toolbar and taken them off the side navigation to free up some space for your query list. Helps to decrease the need for vertical scrolling, but technically you can actually put them in both places. So it's really up to you. There's over 900 system properties that are delivered, most of whom are delivered with the capability for live refresh, as in no restart the server, redeploy, rebuild and redeploy the ear. I probably got those out of order, but at any rate, I don't do it anymore. It's the greatest thing. Some of the ones that are more common and useful around the user interface are included here. And you can just use this as your filter to find them all and get to a much smaller list as opposed to having to scroll through and find them individually when you're looking at a list of over 900. So just food for thought. The live refresh is something that was added out of the box. This column is not here. So you can make the change in application designer for administrative applications as well as end-user applications to help manage your session within Maximo. Alrighty, what's next? Oh yes. Help, as I'm sure you know, is huge, absolutely huge. And somewhere in there are help on the system properties. They're grouped and organized depending on the type of functionality that you are looking at or looking for, and there is actual help documentation for them. And yes, I included a link to this page in the list of links. It's just a lot easier. And in fact, let's see, where is that thing? There it is, way down there. Look at that. So in here and somewhere, present contact, system property, there it is. So, and of course it opens somewhere else. And, oh, and there you have it. So if you want to look at conditional property, whatever that is, there's information about it. Some cases you'll have multiple properties that will be listed as well, and greater detail. So again, uh, you have additional documentation available to you within Maximo, but the usual problem is just trying to find where it is in the navigation for a very large help document. All right, oops, and we can, this is the document you'll be able to download, by the way. And we can get back, there we go, into presentation. Let's go forward with, cron tasks, yes. So, cron tasks are where you store running parameters for procedures within Maximo. Um, they run on a clock. So they have a time where they're supposed to start, a specific day and time, or days and time, and over 50 await you for parameter setup and scheduling if you need them. Here are just a few, and we'll take a look at one later. Yes, there's a link to more information, but just to kind of look at this, the bulletin board cron, or BB cron, it just updates the number, not a big deal. But if you're using the bulletin board, you definitely want to turn it on. If you're not using the bulletin board, it really won't matter. Budget updates. So if you are using budget monitoring and you do establish your budgets, then you'll want the budget update cron task running to make the calculations and update the budget, once a month or however frequently you actually want to have that done. Um, this will keep the usage data continuing to accumulate and alter the budget as you're going through the year. Of course, if you're not using budget monitoring that, then no need to turn on the cron. Escalations, you build your escalations in the escalation application, but the schedule piece comes over to the escalation cron. And then they're all summarized, then listed there if you want to look at the details on them. Your KPI cron task. If you're using KPIs, you want to make sure this cron task is running because it will execute the SQL statement that is part of your KPI, get a data value, and store it in Maximo so that when you get to the point where you want to do trending or you want to download those data points, the KPI cron task is what actually makes them available. If you have KPI and you hit the update button on the Start Center, that does not create a new data point. It just gets you the most recent data. And in fact, if you have KPIs and the cron task is not running, then your cron, your KPI will actually not be updated until you hit the update button. So if you open up Maximo today and you look at a KPI and you see it hasn't been updated in 3 days, it's probably around your cron task. Just want to make sure that guy's running and verify its schedule. Most KPI cron tasks run daily, but you may have other requirements for more frequent, and then it gets business decision up to you. The work order generators, so whether it's for measurement points for condition monitoring or preventive maintenance, those guys will generate work orders based on your PM settings and parameters. Now, in this case, the cron tasks will also look at organization options, and we'll come back to that. But it's not, so sometimes the cron task just needs information on its own. in terms of parameters and scheduling. Other cases like these where you're affected by what's in the organization option. You can't just have the cron task running. The organization settings need to be in place as well. Reorder cron task, our last one for this moment. Generate PRs or POs depending on the settings and parameters. And again, and in fact, we'll take a look at this one now. And yeah, so we reorder cron task. It's a good example of instances for cron task. For example, the direct issue reordering is likely to occur more frequently than orders for stock. Directed issue may even be multiple times per day depending on your level of usage, whereas orders for stock may not. The main point here is that you can choose. Keep in mind the custom nature of the list of parameters. It's unlike any other in Maximo. So when you're listing your sites for direct issue, they're just separated by a semicolon. If you're listing storerooms for orders for stock, this combination is a semicolon separated storeroom comma site pair. Yeah, I couldn't make that up. So, and this is actually the help that appears right here in the very small print, which you can barely read. So hopefully this you can. The idea here is that you can set the rules and they can be different depending on the storerooms that you have that you need to run the reorders for, and including some storerooms you'll omit because you don't want to run reorder for them. Another example, yeah. So again, some of the cron tasks utilize organization options. So first, as I mentioned before, for the PMs, and in this case is the PM organization option. You set these by site, so different sites in your organization can have different rules around the PM work order generation. Um, there are, generate number of days ahead, use the frequency criteria, generate alerts if you want based on the status. Main points though, checkbox. Automatic PM work order generation. So if your cron task is running and this box is not checked, well, your cron task isn't going to do anything. Just got to make sure that's in place. You should, if you are running the PM or measurement or both cron tasks, then you want to make sure that you have an email for someone, or it may go to a group email that will contain the results of each run in case you need to look and check for errors. Some of the runs can be large, so you want to make sure that you look at the file and you can scan it. You can even just search for errors or warnings as opposed to those that are successfully done, which those will be immediately available in the work order application. So again, if you are going to run either the PM work order generation cron or the measurement condition monitoring cron, make sure you have the boxes checked and include an email address. Moving to reorder, the inventory reorder cron will reorder, and then the organization settings for this, in this case at organizational level, determine how far into the process the purchase rec or purchase order is going to be generated. So external, where money's going outside the door, generally going to go to an unapproved PR, maybe an unapproved PO, but not an approved PO. Internal request creation, which is just in general moving money around within your own organization. And it's just a business issue. If you want to, you don't have to use internal orders, but they are available to you as a function in Maximo and some other parameters here as well, including the number of lines. So the reorder will generate for a single vendor X number of lines before it kicks over into a new record, a new purchase order, new purchase requisition. That number is set here. And I guess the thing to keep in mind beyond this is workflow. If you have a workflow process for procurement and you have a cron task generating those records, they will not automatically go into workflow unless the workflow designer has the automatic initiate turned on for that process. So it's not based on the cron task. It's not an organization option. It's actually in Workflow Designer where you specify that something can be automatically initiated. And in fact, I just realized I don't have that on here. So let's just take a quick look into Workflow so that you can see it. I didn't have a slide on it. Who knew? Doesn't really matter. I can grab any process. So this is our guy. Interactive initiate. There he is. Start the process when an MBO is entered interactively. So ultimately, workflow will scan for new records into the MABO, the Maximo Business Object. When that new record is created and picked up, it will automatically roll it into the workflow. But this is where you need to initiate that action, not the cron task, not the organization option. All right, let's get back to 100% and somewhere, there it is, back to the slides. I try not to do that too much, but you just end up moving back and forth. All right, so let's see, who's next? Oh yes, integration framework. The Maximo Integration Framework houses a number of applications. One is the object structure, and they're heavily utilized, or they should be, with starts and result sets, and definitely with query-based reporting. Specifically, this is the inventory application report object structure out of the box. Contains objects for inventory details, which is basically the inventory table, inventory cost, which would be INV cost, and inventory balances, which is INV balance, I think. Can't remember table names. Your item description is in the item table. So we'll take a look at actually making that adjustment so that you can actually go ahead and select the table and field onto your report that includes the item description. Report object structures, again, from a Start Center standpoint, if you use the report object structure on your results set, that will enable the download button. If you don't, it won't. And if you're using the report object structure on your results set, it enables you to bring in other fields from related applications, very much like here in the case of query-based reporting, you can bring in other fields. And that will, in general, enhance the value of the query-based report as well as the result set. And the result set's a little bit more limited, but at least it will allow you to do a little bit more in terms of getting related data onto the screen and again available for download. All right, let's take a look at what's next. Oh, domains. So the domains application allows you to leverage the domains delivered with Maximo, and there are quite a few. You also have the capability to create additional domains that you can assign to fields via database configuration application and then make available on screen via application designer for both entry of the value as well as query from the list tab or the advanced search or both. There are 6 types included. Yep, there's a link. And we're going to take a look at a couple here. First, crossover domain. So in this particular crossover domain, it's going to grab fields from a service request and copy their values over to the work order. So for example, if there are a number of fields that are already here, let's say, and it's 5 of 11, so I'm not sure what the other ones are 'cause it's just a screenshot, but let's say I don't have supervisor on here and it's on the service request screen. If it is and I want to copy it over, I can add it here and then the crossover will pick it up the next time the search request is used to create a work order. If we look at another example, synonym domains, and this is the case for work order status. And keep in mind the status has functionality that follows the edit rules. Often people will create synonyms to accommodate nomenclature and or business processes, and that would be done here. So let's say, for example, maintenance completes a popular status that gets created often, typically a synonym of in progress. And in fact, yeah, it's demonstration time anyway. So let's go ahead and we'll just do that one first. There I am, still in workflow. So let's look at domains. Domains are here in system configuration, platform, and domains. Probably doing a lot of these. Nope, don't want to change. All right, so, whoa, status. Yeah, work order status. So the number of them are here. There we go. And if I want to create a synonym, I'd specify, let's see, so INPRG is my internal value. The value that's going to show up on the screen is going to be MCOMP. There we go. And we'll just say maintenance complete. Now, actually, let's go ahead. Hit OK first. We'll save it. All right. So what does that mean? So where did it go? There it is. All right. So it's not the default value. So in progress will still be the default. But what this does is it allows you to set up and identify work order that's been completed. The work's been completed by maintenance, but the work order is still effectively in progress status. So when we look at administration, organizations, yeah, I'm bouncing around, but you'll get the recording. So we want work order options, edit rules. So what this means is that while the work order is in maintenance complete status, it's following whatever the rules are for in progress. Okay? Whereas if I move it to complete, if I made the maintenance complete status more of a complete status, then it behaves like complete or like some other status. In progress tends to allow you more, and in fact, you can make some additional options available. I usually allow GL asset and location to be updated while in progress because when the technician gets out in the field, he can identify more detail or correct the detail that's there so that it gets updated on the work order prior to work order actually being completed or closed. So, and I'll just leave those in place because that's what I wanted. All right, and let's take a look at my list of things here because I really should cover The list is long and the clock is running. All right, and there goes the dog. Look at that. So hopefully you didn't sign it, didn't hear that. All right, let's take a look at, we'll do an end user one first, and then we'll just dig into the rest of the administrators. So purchase orders, because I get this a lot. So got the vendor, and this is demo data, so the vendors have nice names that you can kind of make out. That's not that common often. Um, Usually you'll see numbers or some very long number, and you have no idea what that is. So it might be useful to have the vendor's name up here. So we'll go ahead into Application Designer. We'll pull up the PO application. We will drop a column in next to the vendor. All right, let's try that again. All right, well, let's try. No, I probably got too many things open. All right, so let's try that again. Table column. There it goes. All right, now we don't need it, and we will go on here. And now, if we just say name, invalid binding. Yep. All right. Well, we know the name for the vendor is in the company's table, so company's dot name. That should work. No joy. The reason is that what you want to do is make sure you grab the relationship identifier from database configuration, which is actually vendor. And we can even say vendor name. And in fact, when we go to purchase orders, we will find it is there and it actually works. And in fact, you can use it to search. So it's just something to keep in mind. Um, it's useful, and the thing to really keep in mind in terms of changes like this is in database configuration. We'll just look at the PO, probably a lot of POs. Equal, well, actually, let's just go up here, type in PO, and go directly to the object. And over here in the relationships tab, there are a number of, 81. I'm not searching through those. I want to find the child object companies. So there it is. The key here is vendor. That's the relationship name I want to use to identify what is going to be on the screen. Now, we can, let's see, who should we do next? System properties, we've kind of abused those. All right, so let's go look at users. Security, users, couple things actually. All right, so in the user application, done here, just added email and phone. Just an easy way to get it. Now you can't query for them. So in the purchase order application, when I added the vendor name, I could actually type in something and query for it. Technically, the email and the phone are not persistent fields on the user record. So we're not going to get this leverage here to be able to search, but they are available in the list if you want to find somebody, look them up. It just makes it easier to get to them. And again, depending on how you're in here, how often the changes may be useful to you or not, you just make the ones that are useful. Types, out of the box, user types 1 through 10, not very informative. It's a domain. You can alter the values that you use. It's cinnamon domain, so you'll still get type 1 through 10, but you can put in additional values in here that make more sense to you in terms of how you have deployed your users throughout the application. KPIs, receiving, let's see, KPI manager. What do we do there? Administration, KPI. Oh, just if you want to know what's public and what's active, I think I have everything active in this environment. Yeah, they're all active. Some are not public, but and this is just going to let me know that these guys are active, so I can pick one. Doesn't really matter which one it is. And over here in historical trends, historical values, I got values actually calculating, and that's because the KPI cron task is actually running. So in general, this particular KPI doesn't really have anything because of what it's calculating, but it is still running the KPI and posting a new value out there. So depending on what your KPIs are, you want to make sure they are active. Your KPI cron is running to get you your data points. And let's take a look at conditional UI. So in the assets application, I configured conditional user interface. So let's go pick a vehicle. I think we have, yep, a Freightliner. There we go. We had some. So right now, among other things, you'll notice asset tags available, serial number, but they're not required. And in fact, they're not really requiring any record. But if I change this to a fleet record, asset tag becomes required, serial number becomes required. So how is that done? Well, there are two things. So first, there is a conditional expression. There he is. Nope, no change. Asset, something. Probably have a lot of these. Oh, not that many at all. So fleet type asset. Okay, it's an expression. Asset type equals fleet. Not that complicated. I know you're thinking it'll be complicated SQL, but a lot of these really are not. Next thing in security, probably just in users as well, but in security, we have global data restrictions. And in this case, for an attribute, it said for the asset object, the asset tag, as well as the serial number are required. You can hide them, make them read only as well, based on this condition. Now, this is a global setting, which means it's just going to be that way for the instance. So anyone from any organization site in this particular Maximo instance will be following this global data restriction. So again, you can, the previous video I showed you a signature toggle where you can do it based on a security group in a setting. Here, now we're expanding out to everyone, and you can fluctuate in between depending on the type of change and constraint that you need to impose for your business. But you have the granularity to do everyone at once or down to a small security group. And in either case, it's specific to an application. So I can impose this restriction in this particular application, but in another application, maybe a clone for assets, or if I would do this in work order tracking, but not in quick reporting, then I could do that here based on the global data restriction. So again, just some of the capabilities that are available around the conditional user interface, keeping in mind it needs a condition to be set up, and then where you're going to actually leverage and use that particular condition. Okay, we talked about I'm running out of time. Okay, we talked about the integration object structures. So integration object structures, There are migration managers, actual integrations for interfaces, and reporting. Those are three types of object structures. We only really want to look at the reporting object structure in this particular case. And there it is, inventory. And there they are. Uh, so that's why when you go to build a report, you end up with this inventory cost, and balance. And what we really need here is, and since this is demo, I'll just go ahead and make the change. Inventory, of course, object. All right, fine. Probably typing something wrong. VEN, there it is. Inventory, object structure, set support flat file. Oh, well, that's interesting. Didn't see that coming. That's fine. All right, so it looks like this has been set up for a flat file data load. All right, so let's go ahead and where's my favorite button? Duplicate. Don't want to save any changes, and we'll give it inventory. Okay, inventory details, it's made for reporting. It's in the inventory application, so that part's good. And then, it's gonna be a lot of work because I gotta make it available. All right, let's see if I can remember how to do this. Inventory, item. Oops, item. All right, we need to grab the, oh, item. Yeah, so that's just me doing it wrong. All right, so this is why I don't get to do this much anymore. Cardinality is going to be single and save it. And if that's the case, then what I can probably do, I typed it in wrong, item. Yes, rookies. And this is going to be item. Oops. You'll actually see where this shows up later. Actually, I'll make item table. And parent object I didn't like. Yeah. All right. So inventory. There it is. Relationship. It's the only one that's there. And it's single card. Okay. Hit OK. Yeah. Flat file wasn't the issue. It was the fact that I had reversed the object and the parent object. Just because that's the issue with doing these live. All right. So now I'll go into inventory and inventory application and create report, content. There it is. And you see where it says item table. That's that description. So now I can actually click on it and get description. Yeah, description. Get that added on. It will tell me description comes from the item table. And the item table is just, again, what I named it. So this way you have the flexibility to make that available for somebody building out their query-based report. Let's see. So a couple others I wanted to cover here. Let's look at chart of accounts. I know nobody wants to look at chart of accounts. Got to set them up. Financial periods will be available to you as well. I can set those up. I don't recommend you put in any of the closers unless you have a business rule that requires them. That way you have the flexibility to make the updates that you may need to do after closure or after theoretical closure. And again, that's your business requirement. Will dictate that. Validation options. Probably want to validate the combinations. So make sure that they're valid combinations as opposed to just a single segment. And you want to validate the financial periods. Now, if you want to validate financial periods, you need to make sure your periods are in place. If you don't, you'll get an error and you'll wonder where it came from. So if you're trying to report time outside of a financial period that's already it's in Maximo, then you'll get an error. You won't be able to report the time or part usage or other transactions. So if you are going to validate, you want to make sure your financial periods are in for however long in the future you'd like to go. Number of other options are available to you around the GLs as well. And let's take a look at a PO. Back to purchasing, purchase orders. Yes, I have a list. I'm just trying to follow it. 1013 is the PO, 1013, and just to show you an example here, if you have issues where you have trouble with the GLs being proper, because you have to have, in fact, let's just go ahead and try this. So I'm going to go ahead and approve, and you'll notice the icon for approve and for close have moved up here, as well as change status. Change status actually appears in both. New appears in both. And this is just system properties, allowing you to take your side navigation actions and put them up on the toolbar. So I'm going to go ahead and try and approve this purchase order. There it is. There's my error. First order line 1, GL account is not fully specified. And because it's here, out of the box, GL account is not here. You actually have to go into the details and look for it and then make the change. Sometimes if you have a lot of these that have a problem, then it may be useful for you as an administrator to add that field into the summary area so somebody can see it, particularly in cases where there are a large number of lines. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead, should probably close now and take questions. And again, just for reference, make sure you get the handouts, the slides, as well as the list of links. And I will go ahead and let's see, look at questions. Okay, let's see, where did my Maximo go? There it is. All right, let's get back into Maximo. Of course, I know I timed out. Let's see, there were a couple other items to clarify here. So first thing, this portlet that you see available here for who's logged in or blocked, that's just because over in the user's application, there's a query and there's a where clause, and it just looks, check to see for people who are blocked based on the synonym value in case you use a synonym domain and you have a different synonym for blocked, and looking for the user ID in the table or object called max session. That's where you log in, a record shows up there. So just an easy way to make it show on the Start Center. And on the list of things that you have, where to go? There it is, right down here, is that syntax. So that's available to you as well. All right, back to Maximo. Let's see, what else I want to talk about. Oh, locations. Forgot to actually show you the example. So let's go ahead and get that done. So cost by system, I want to run a report. It says at this time and recurring. Those are the only two options. The immediate option is what I want to do now is not here. And that's because that scheduled checkbox is there in, where'd you go? Report administration. So let's go find them. Actually, cost. Yep, that's the one I want. So click on them, Clear checkbox, save it. Generate the request page. It's been generated. Go back to locations. Run the report. Run a report. Cost by system, and now you see the immediate option is available. So again, that and you may have some reports that you want to just run scheduled, and that's fine. And again, if you have questions, go ahead and ask in the question box. And looks like there's one more. Need to go back and clarify for this will be users again. So let's go back to users, the list. I think I misspoke. So you don't have the option to search in the filter area, not just because the primary email and primary phone are not on the user object, but they're also not on the person object. They're not persistent fields on the person object. So that's their issue. But they are available for you to bring onto the list. And in fact, when you download them, wherever the download went, I'm pretty sure I downloaded them somewhere. Let's see, downloads. There should be a spreadsheet somewhere. Oh, no idea where it went. But at any rate, when you do download them and don't have issues, I clearly do. Incognito window. I wonder if that's what did it. Let's see. Do I have a regular window somewhere? Here we go. So let's try that again. And we'll go to users. And nothing like going out live. Download. There it is. Open her up. Oh, file's corrupt. Oh, probably because I opened it too quickly. Browse. Don't want documents. Want downloads. That's the one. And there's the data. So you can't add them. In this case, it's a done on purpose, making the non-persistent field available onto the person object, which then gravitates over and is available to you on the user object based on the relationship that's built in Maximo and database configuration, which allows you to leverage it in Application Designer and make it available to you here on the user record. All right, so let's see, let's go ahead and looks like I have an update as well. Let's see if we can get to them. Oh, that's mine. So let's go ahead. So there was a change I mentioned earlier about the next webinar, and probably just easier to go to the events page and just show you all of them. So yeah, that's the day. There are a number of other ones that are going to take place. And technically, I'm logged in here, but you don't have to log in to the More Maximo community to get access to the list of webinars or meetings and so on. And the automation scripts webinar is actually going to take place July 21st. I think I gave you a different date earlier. So that's been updated and is available here. Other than that, if you want, feel free to join the More Maximo community. Hopefully you got both handouts, one being the slides and then this being the other one, which gives you access to a number of different links and information around administration. Thank you very much for your attendance. And you should be getting a link to this session. It's been being recorded. And I should get to you within the next couple of weeks for everyone who has registered. And looks like I don't have any questions. So Thanks very much for your time, and looks like we finished on time again. Yay. Let's see. And of course, I need to stop this thing. Have a good day.